No, 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 no.
Alright everybody, welcome back! So Gaijin finally went ahead and did it. I guess they made enough money off the Vark post at this point, but they handed out a massive nerf to the F-111. So many of y'all might recall back when the F-111 first came out, I want to say it was back in October, I said this thing was massively overperforming. Well, it took them longer than I expected, but it has gotten a huge nerf just now. Many of y'all might remember, but I already didn't like flying the F-111 just because I'm really not a big fan of planes that can't hold energy at higher speeds. And as you can see right here, it already had a tendency to, when the wings were back, immediately bleed all of its speed away the moment you touch the elevator. Well, now it still has that, but it also lost that low speed turning advantage that it used to have, because it used to turn surprisingly well with the wings forward, and especially with the flaps out. It was kind of like a mini F-14 in that regard. Well, Gaijin went ahead and reduced the Oswald efficiency number, which increases drag. They reduced lift after stall, they reduced lift at critical AOA, a bunch of stuff like that. And now it handles like an absolute truck, which, to be honest, is what I was expecting the entire time. The F-111 was never really known for being a very maneuverable aircraft, especially the strike version. But yeah, now it's here. Now, of course, this is a strike aircraft, and it still has a very nice bomb load, so if you're just looking to bomb bases or whatever else, then this thing will still do just fine, although it will be quite a bit worse now because it has much worse energy retention than it used to. And it already has pretty poor acceleration, so that doesn't really help things. But I pretty much exclusively focus on playing planes, that shoot down other aircraft. I like the PvP aspect of ARB more than anything else, so that's what I'll be focusing on here. And if you're like me and you're just trying to shoot down other enemy aircraft, yeah, this is really not the plane anymore. So, like I said earlier, it already had some pretty major issues, but now with this flight model change, it feels absolutely terrible to fly. It constantly bleeds speed, doesn't have the good sustained turn anymore, and it's also a massive target. Pretty much every fighter at the battle rating is going to absolutely rinse you, and you may be able to get out of their guns once or twice, but then you're not going to have any energy left. I've had so many situations just like this one right here where I dodge one shot and I'm going 300 or 400 kilometers an hour, and there's no way for me to catch up to them. It's especially bad with stuff like the Kathir Canard, which has a ton of power behind it. And you're going to be seeing a lot of those, especially because, surprise, surprise, the sale just happened. Even in this full down tier that you see me in the background, I am still, flight performance-wise, having a very hard time keeping up. This thing is very fast in a straight line. The problem is that you aren't able to get there because the acceleration is also fairly mediocre. And then, of course, like I said earlier, the moment you hit any kind of elevator, whether it be MAWS or anything else, you are going to lose tons of speed. And so most of the time, I'm sitting there going just barely above Mach because I cannot get up to that higher speed. Even though this is one of the fastest planes on the deck in the game, it can't actually reach that in a real battle unless you are literally flying in a straight line. It feels even worse right now because, surprise, surprise, with all these premium sales, you were getting a ton of 11.3 games. I want to say around 60% of my games today were all full up tiers to 11.3. And this thing really does not like fighting MiG-23 MLs, MLDs, F4Ss, other stuff like that, because they all have better performance and a much better kit, because remember, this thing only gets AIM-9Bs max. Something tells me, though, that might be changing soon with how poor the flight performance of the aircraft is now. This is a perfect example of my primary gripe. As you can see, I'm just barely moving the mouse, and I'm losing 0.1 or 0.2 Mach literally every time I so much as touch it. And this makes it incredibly difficult to actually stay behind somebody. And when you combine it with the very mushy flight controls, this also makes getting proper gunshots off very difficult. This translates into a lot of assists, because sure, you may be able to throw away all your speed and get that one shot off, but then you get a hit or a crit and you're not able to finish them off because they can literally just fly away and there's nothing you can do because you only have AIM-9Bs in your Vulcan. This is actually a great example in front of me. I crit this Draken, and if he'd really wanted to, he could have just kept going. Now, I'm able to catch him because he decides to keep turning right here, but you saw before he kept turning, he was still easily outstripping me, even with the damage to his aircraft. So he could have just kept going, flared my AIM-9Bs, and just run back to base, and sure, I may have caught him eventually, but it would take a very long time with the poor thrust away that this thing has. You do, of course, at least get 2,000 rounds of Vulcan, which is an incredibly high amount of ammo, the most of anything with the Vulcan, so you can spray as much as you want. And feel free to do so, especially in these head-ons, because you are going to need to get these kills as quickly as possible. Because this thing is not a carry aircraft. If you get caught in a 1vx scenario, just like I do right here, you are going to die. This is a perfect example. That's a MiG-23 MLD. He's about to absolutely rinse me in the dogfight. And that's before we talk about any of his friends, because one of them is going to come in and go for me. You can see right here, I have my wings all the way forward, and my speed is going down drastically. Now, of course, it wasn't on burner there, but it really doesn't make much of a difference, because I'm sitting here going 300 kilometers an hour, and I get absolutely smoked by a Kavir Canard. After this nerf, the flight performance feels so bad that I think I'll say it. I think you should actually bomb bases in the F-111 now. I think this is the first time I have said on my channel that you should bomb bases in a plane, but post-nerf F-111 honestly feels just this bad. Like, the F-105 feels so much better than the F-111 flight performance-wise. Like, they should really give me one with flares. I would fly that over this thing. As a, a fighter player, of course. Just make sure if you do so, do not bring bombs on those outer two pylons in either wing, because that will stop your wings from sweeping back and you will be subsonic. One of the advantages that the F-111 still has is its MAWS, or missile warning system, but it's not omnipotent. As you can see right there, I wasn't getting a warning. I saw it before I got the missile warning, and it was still too late to flare. It only covers about 45 degrees to either side and less up and down, so you do have to be careful. It will not catch everything thrown at you, even rear aspect. I would also make sure to disable the flare slaving to MAWS, because if you don't, then they will all drop in about, 2 or 3 missile launches? And not even missile launches. Literally any rocket motor that fires behind the aircraft will set off the MAWS and will fire off your flares. And I totally wouldn't know this because I definitely didn't fire any rockets behind my friendly F-111s on the airfield, causing them to lose all their flares. I would never do that. I'm not that mean. As you can see right here though, even with the slaving turned off, you still get a missile warning. You can just look back yourself and see if you actually need to flare or not. And this is how I would actually use it. This way you still get warned if somebody fires a missile at you, but you don't lose all of your flares. Another word of warning for aspiring Vark players, there may still be one more nerf in the works. The wings currently don't rip until after 15 Gs, which is not how it actually should be. The F-111 was only rated for 7 Gs in real life, maybe 7.5 depending on what manual we look at. And so it should be ripping at around 10.5 to 11 Gs. So, assuming they go ahead and fix that, because there is still an internal bug report open on it, I believe, it's gonna get even worse. But I mean, hey, I suppose that as a bomb sled, it's still not too terrible, although personally I would still rather take an F-105. In any case, I hope y'all enjoyed the video. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. I'm trying to hit 15,000 subscribers. I also finally got around to making that new outro, so let me know what y'all think down in the comments below. I'll catch y'all next time, so peace, y'all.